initiated by a former Labor government under the auspices then of the Honourable Jim Sutton.
Grant Robertson.
Much, Mr Chair, and it's nice to follow on from the Minister in such a bipartisan and harmonious way, and I'm sure the previous ministers will admire that. What was that?
It's so you can get to the gym by 6 o'clock.
That's right. That's right. Don't hog the treadmill, Minister. No, it is good to hear that. And obviously also when I look at this, it does have an element of compulsion about it, which I know is not something the Minister is a great fan of, the whole notion of compulsion. But clearly in this particular sector, the Minister has decided this is the time for some compulsion. There has been a voluntary take-up rate among, I think, cattle farmers of around 40%, but clearly that's not enough in order to provide the kind of comprehensive scheme that's envisaged by this bill. Mr Chair, it's a pleasure to be able to stand and support this bill and acknowledge the work not only of former ministers, as the current minister has done, but of Shane Arden and the Primary Production Committee, who I know worked hard on this bill. The Minister has talked, and Shane Arden both talked a lot about the foot and mouth situation and the importance, I guess, of New Zealand being able to avoid a negative consequence through a system like this, through the identification system. I want to speak briefly about the positive opportunities that lie in this bill for New Zealand. A little while ago, before I became a Member of Parliament, I did some work for the University of Otago, and a project I worked on there with Simon Upton, the former National Minister, was called Paddock to Plate. And it was the notion that if New Zealand is going to market its goods overseas and reach into new markets, we do need to be able to address the modern concerns that are addressed by traceability. That is, do we know that this was farmed in a sustainable way? What do we know about the health of the herd and the immediate environment in which they're in? And there is huge opportunity, I believe, provided in this bill for New Zealand to improve its export performance by being able to meet those concerns. And it's been said that some of the most important people to New Zealand's primary production industries are in fact the buyers for the big supermarket chains in the UK. Because if they're prepared to say this is a product that's sustainable, this is a product that we know has been brought to us in a way that our consumers are telling us they want, then we'll go a long way to getting over some of those somewhat fictitious concerns about air miles and so on, which actually, when you balance that against the overall sustainability of the primary production process in New Zealand, actually will give you a much more sustainable product, even if it has had to travel a significant distance to get there. And so I believe this is actually part of a very important process. My own view is actually we need to go further. It's not actually just about the cattle, or in this case, or the deer. It's actually about the land that they graze on as well. What do we know about that? How much do we know about the sustainability of that land? And again, declaring a little bit of an interest, part of the job I had involved a company that has developed some technology. It's called Regen Limited. I was part of a company called Harmonic, and they actually developed technology around measuring effluent, looking at soil acidity content, that kind of thing. We actually, if we're truly serious about a paddock to plate approach, need to go right back and say, are we able to tell consumers in Britain buying their beef from Sainsbury's all the way from the kind of land through to how the cattle and how healthy they are, right through to how it's then farmed and produced and taken out to the shops in the UK. We have to be able to look paddock to plate. Traceability is an important part of that, and in turn this identification process is a significant part. But I do believe there is great opportunity here to actually look at this further. Equally, there is great opportunity for New Zealand-based companies to help develop the technology. And it is of some regret that one of the companies that is able to do that, Surtrac, which grew out of Landcare, is no longer New Zealand owned. It's owned in Canada now. It is possible for CRIs to sell off their subsidiary companies, and it's perhaps disappointing that we weren't able to retain the benefit of that in New Zealand. But as I noted, there are other companies, such as the ones that I've had some association with, who are developing this technology. I know there are numerous other companies that I haven't named today, and I think it is important that we make sure that we use this as an opportunity to support that kind of new technology. That is the kind of development that will help our economy, Mr Chair, to be able to say we will leverage off what is great and productive about New Zealand and create new technologies that go with that. So really just some brief comments, Mr Chair, to indicate that along with the rest of the Labour caucus, I strongly support this bill, not just because it will help us avoid the negative consequences of something like foot and mouth, but also because it offers great positive opportunities, in my view, for New Zealand and companies inside New Zealand.
Call Colin King.